My children have stopped calling. Not all at once, slowly. And I am 86 years old, sitting alone in a house that is too quiet, finally facing the truth about the life I built. You see, I was married for 59 years. I raised 3 children. From the outside, it looked like a good life, a secure retirement. But after my husband died, the loneliness set in. And then the calls from my kids, they just started to fade away. I want to talk to you about grief after loss, about what it means to be an aging parent who feels left behind. But honestly, this isn't about blaming them. This is about the regret I carry, the wasted years where I was present, but I wasn't really there. I gave them everything I knew how to give. The problem is what I didn't know how to give. Stay with me. I need to tell you where I went wrong. It started with the Sunday calls. Bobby used to call every Sunday like clockwork. Then it became every other Sunday. Then he'd text instead. All good here, Mom. Busy week. Diane calls on my birthday and Christmas. Susan and I have had a distance for a long time. I started keeping a little notebook by the phone. I'd write down the date and who called and for how long. I did that for 4 months last year. Looking at those pages, seeing the gaps get wider, it made me feel like an accountant of my own loneliness. I threw the notebook away. I was ashamed of it. The quiet here is different now. Jerry's been gone 4 years. He died right before everything locked down. I held his hand while he struggled to breathe. Our last real conversation was about whether I'd paid the gas bill. 59 years together, and we still didn't know how to say the real things. We were good at being in the same room. We weren't always good at being in the same conversation. He was a good man, steady. I modeled my whole life on being steady, on not making waves. I think I taught my children how to do that too, how to not need anything from me that wasn't practical. I need to tell you about 1979. Jerry's hardware store was about to go under. We almost lost our house. He couldn't face the books, so I did. I sat at the kitchen table night after night, my fingers stained with ink, recalculating everything. I called the suppliers. I negotiated. I saved that business. And he never really thanked me, not in words, and I never asked him to. I told myself that was love, doing the hard thing quietly, not talking about it. That's what my father did. He was a factory foreman. He showed up. He said very little. I adored him. I thought his silence was strength. Now I'm old, and I'm wondering if it was just a wall. When my youngest, Susan, left for college in 1988, I walked into her empty bedroom. It was so clean, so quiet. I sat on her bed and I realized I didn't know what I was for anymore. I was 49 years old. My entire identity was wrapped up in being a mother, a wife. I had oriented my life around other people's needs, and then they all left, and I was just standing there. I didn't have hobbies. I didn't have a career. I had a vacuum. I filled it by helping Jerry more at the store, and later I started volunteering at the hospital, visiting old people who had no family. It's not lost on me now what I was practicing for. Here is the truth I have been circling, the one I talk about on this channel. I was emotionally unavailable to my children. I showed love through logistics, meals, schedules, clean laundry, showing up to every game. I never missed an event, but I rarely asked them questions. I didn't know how to have a real conversation about what they felt or who they were becoming. I favored Bobby. I know I did. He was the peacekeeper. He was easier for me. With Diane, her independence felt like abandonment, and I never said that. I just felt it. With Susan, I had less patience by the third child, more expectation. I think I owe her an apology I haven't figured out how to give. After Jerry died, the fragile way we stayed connected just crumbled. They all have their own lives, busy lives, good lives. Diane is a landscape architect in Oregon. Bobby is in sales up in Scottsdale, just over an hour away. Susan manages a dental office in Texas. They have spouses, kids, their own problems. My mental health, my loneliness. It became another thing for them to manage. And I was never someone who asked for management. I was the manager. So the calls got shorter. The visits became rushed. I'd watch the clock when Bobby came down. I'd make a pot of coffee and he'd drink 1 cup and say he had to get back. I understand. I do. But understanding something doesn't stop it from hurting. Last month I did something I'm not proud of. I got in my car and I drove all the way to Scottsdale. I found Bobby's house. I parked across the street. I saw his wife's car in the driveway. The lights were on in the living room. I sat there for 47 minutes, just watching. I imagined them inside, talking, living their lives, and I couldn't bring myself to knock on the door. I drove all the way home. I realized I was teaching them the same distance I had always practiced. I was showing them by example how to love from far away. So I started this channel. My neighbor's granddaughter helped me. She set up the iPad, showed me the red button. I sat here in this chair for 11 minutes without saying a word. Then I just started talking. I needed somewhere to say the things I couldn't say to the people who should have been listening. I talk about the silence. I talk about being a mother who gave everything and still got it wrong somehow. I talk about forgiving people who haven't asked for forgiveness. I have letters. I wrote one to each of my children. Long, honest letters. They're in a shoebox under my bed. I add to them sometimes. I don't know if I'll send them before I die or after. I'm still figuring that out. Maybe sending them is just another form of my old way, doing something instead of saying it. Maybe the braver thing is to pick up the phone and try, even if it's hard, even if the conversation is awkward. The central lesson of my life at 86 is this. Love is not a series of tasks completed. It's not just showing up. It is a continuous, vulnerable conversation. You can pack every lunch and attend every graduation and still be absent if you never learn to ask the question, who are you? And then truly listen to the answer. I built a home on silence and service. I gave them a mother who was reliable, but who was a stranger in some important ways. The calls stopped because the connection was frayed long before Jerry died. I am trying now to face that, to own my part in it. I don't blame them. I really don't. I just miss them, and I wish I had known 60 years ago that love requires a voice. You can see it there on the side table, the phone. It's just the cordless phone I've always had. I don't put it there for the camera. It just lives there. And its silence, well, it's the loudest thing in this room. I hear it more than I hear my own breathing some days. To understand that silence, I think you have to go back to where the quiet began. For me, that was in another living room, in Ohio. My mother, Helen, she was always doing, cooking, cleaning, mending. Her love was in the hem of a dress, the hot meal on the table. My father, Walter, he was a good man. He provided, he showed up, but he didn't talk, not about anything that mattered. I learned that love was something you did, not something you said. I carried that dictionary right into my own life. I didn't know to question it. I met Jerry at a church social. He asked me to dance, and I said yes, because it was the polite thing to do. We married in 1961. It wasn't a grand passion. It was a partnership. He ran the hardware store. I ran the house. We were good at our jobs. In 1979, the store almost went under. Jerry couldn't look at the books, so I'd sit at the kitchen table late after everyone was asleep, and I'd recalculate everything. My fingers would be stained with ink. I saved that business. He never said thank you, and I never asked him to. That's just how it was. We were two parallel lines, running side by side, but never really touching. Then came the children. Diane first. I was so terrified. It felt like a gray fog for that first year. But nobody talked about things like that then. You just got on with it. So I did. I showed my love through actions, packed lunches, ironed clothes. I was at every school play, every game. I was always there. But now I wonder, was I ever really present? Did I ever sit down and just ask, "Who are you?" I don't think I did. I was too busy doing the next thing on the list. The house got quiet when Susan, my youngest, left for college in 1988. I remember standing in the doorway of her clean, empty room. It was so still. I sat on her bed, and I felt a kind of hollow panic. What was I for now? My whole purpose had just driven away in a station wagon. So I started volunteering at the hospital, visiting old folks who had no one. I think I was practicing for something. Then came 2020. Jerry died in March, right before everything locked down. Our last conversation was about whether I'd paid the gas bill. 59 years, and that's what we talked about. Then my brother Tommy died alone in October. I couldn't be with either of them. The grief, it was a weight that just sat on my chest. And in that new, terrible silence, I started listening for my children's voices like they were a lifeline. But the calls, they changed. They got shorter, then farther apart. In 2022, I did a shameful thing. I started a little notebook. I'd write down the date and how long each call lasted. Diane, maybe 7 minutes. Bobby, 20. Susan, 4. I watched the gaps between their names get wider and wider. One Sunday, I just stared at that page. It looked like a chart of my own, shrinking. I tore the pages out. I was so ashamed of myself, keeping a ledger of my loneliness like that. But the numbers were already inside me. That's when my neighbor's granddaughter, Chloe, came over. A sweet girl. She set up this iPad right here on the table. She showed me this big red button. You just press this, Peggy, and talk. She left, and I sat here for 11 minutes, just looking at that little blinking light. Then I said, my children have stopped calling. Not all at once, slowly. And once I started, I found I couldn't stop. I've done things since starting this that I'm not proud of. Last month, I drove all the way to Scottsdale. Bobby lives there. It's an hour and 20 minutes. I parked down the street from his house. I could see the lights on inside. His wife's car was in the driveway. I sat there for 47 minutes, just watching. And I understood, sitting there in the dark, that I was doing the exact same thing I'd always done. I was close enough to see, but I was too far away to touch. I drove all the way home without ever turning off the car. That was the night I stopped asking, why don't they call? And started asking, what did I never say? That question led me to the shoebox under my bed. I keep letters in there, long ones I've written to Diane, Bobby, and Susan. I add to them sometimes. They're full of all the things I should have said. I'm sorry. I'm proud of you. Tell me about your life. I don't know if I'll ever send them. Maybe they'd be a gift. Maybe they'd just be a burden, arriving 86 years too late. Writing them is my practice. I'm trying to learn a new language, one built on words, not just folded laundry. And here's the truth I've had to face, sitting in this chair. I gave them a home built on silence and service. I was there, but I wasn't available. Not in the way that counts. I didn't know how to be. My father's quiet and my mother's doing. That's all I had to give. So the calls didn't stop because they stopped loving me. They tapered off because I never taught them how to reach for me in any way that wasn't logistical. Need a recipe? Call mom. Need a check? Call mom. Need to talk about your marriage, your fears, your heart? Well, we didn't have a language for that. Understanding that doesn't fix it, but it lets me hold the whole thing without blame. That's a kind of peace, I think. A sad one, but a real one. I look at this camera now, and then I look at that phone. I don't know if the calls will change, but I have changed. I've learned too late and just in time that love requires a voice. So here's what I'll say to you, whoever's listening. Find the person you've only loved through service. Your parent, your child, your friend. Ask them one question that doesn't have a practical answer. What was the best part of your week? What are you afraid of? Just listen. Start the conversation before the silence becomes a wall you can't climb. I offer a small smile and I reach forward. My finger hovers over the button. The red light blinks, waiting. That drive home from Scottsdale, that's when it all came apart. I walked into this silent house and I just stood in the middle of the living room. I looked at Jerry's chair. I looked at the phone, and I said it out loud to no one. I was wrong about everything. It wasn't anger. It was just a fact. It broke me. I sat down right on the floor and I cried. Not a pretty cry, an ugly, shaking cry that hurt my chest. The cost. The cost is that I don't really know my own children. I know their birthdays. I know Diane likes her garden. I know Bobby's job title, but I don't know their hearts. I lost that. I traded it for clean floors and balanced checkbooks. I remember one time, Susan must have been 16. She came home from a date and her eyes were red. She went straight upstairs. I stood at the bottom of the steps. I called up, "Everything all right, Susie?" She said, "It's fine, Mom." And I said, "Okay, don't forget your lunch is in the fridge for tomorrow." That was it. I went back to wiping the counter. I heard her door close. I'll never forget the sound of that door. I had my answer. She was fine, and I let that be enough. That's the permanent loss. Those thousands of doors closing quietly over 50 years. They learned to stop coming to me with anything that couldn't be solved with a sandwich or a check. I taught them that. I made this. Sitting here on the floor that night, I finally understood. The silence wasn't something that happened to me. It was something I built, brick by brick, every time I chose doing over asking, every time I mistook being busy for being loving. I was the architect of my own empty room. That was the first crack of understanding. It didn't feel good. It felt like the truth, and the truth is a heavy thing to hold at 86. But you have to hold it. You have to. The truth is a heavy thing to hold at 86. But you have to hold it. You have to. And here's what I learned, holding it. Love is not a checklist. I thought if I did all the things, the meals, the laundry, showing up, that was the love. It wasn't. It was just the chores. The love was supposed to be in the space between the chores, in the talking, in the listening, and I left that space empty. I was so afraid of conflict, of saying the wrong thing, that I said nothing at all. I gave them a childhood of perfect order and profound emotional silence. And you cannot expect people to call into a silence they were raised to believe was normal. The phone didn't stop ringing because they are cruel. It stopped ringing because I never taught them that my voice was a place they could come to rest. I was a destination for logistics, not for the heart. And destinations for logistics you only call when you need something. When the needs get smaller, so do the calls. That's the simple, terrible math of it. So my advice, if you're my age and you're sitting in a quiet room wondering what happened, is this. Stop keeping score. Throw away the ledger in your head. It only poisons you. The work isn't about getting them to call more. The work is about becoming someone you might want to call. And that starts with your own mouth. Say the thing. The hard, tender, awkward thing you've been carrying. Do it now. You still have time. Maybe not years, but you have now. And now is enough to change the weather in a room. Pick up your own phone. Don't call to ask if they got your card. Call and say, I was thinking about you today, and I just wanted to hear your voice. If they ask why, say, no reason, just because. That's a new language. It will feel foreign in your mouth. Say it anyway. And if the call is short, let it be short. Don't punish them with your disappointment. Just say, I'm glad I got to hear you. Hang up. You have to build a new bridge, and you build it one honest, kind sentence at a time, without expectation of who will walk across it. Your job is just to build it. Their job, or not, is to cross. You can only control the building. And here is the hope, the real kind, not the sugar-coated kind. Changing didn't bring my children back to my doorstep. Bobby still calls every 2 or 3 weeks. Diane sent a photo of a new rose bush last Tuesday. Susan texted a thumbs-up emoji on my last video. It's not a flood, it's a trickle, but I can feel the difference. Because I'm different. I'm not waiting by the phone anymore. I'm living. I'm talking here, to you. I'm writing those letters, even if they stay in the box. The peace comes from knowing I am finally, belatedly, showing up for my own life. The loneliness hasn't vanished, but it has a companion now, understanding. And understanding is a quiet friend who doesn't need you to make lunch. If this has meant something to you, if you've been sitting in your own quiet room, then maybe you could press that subscribe button. It's the little one down there. It lets you know when I've put a new video up. I'm going to press the stop button now. The red light will go out. The phone will still be there, on the table. But the silence in this room, it doesn't feel so loud anymore. It just feels like a room, waiting to see what happens next.